Over the next 7 years, our lives are really going to be changing very, very rapidly. We're going to see a night and day difference between where we're at now and what we're moving into. We're just vibrating at a very different frequency. Money is going to change. I've called it the death of the dollar. There's going to be more communication and integration with different galactic beings. So there could be this identity crisis in different societies. As I'm saying that, I'm hearing Spirit say in my ear, it's going to ask people to consider, why am I here? What is my purpose? I've been shown people leaning into these gifts and exploring what it means to them. We're going to be doing telepathy back and forth with each other. Most people are afraid to even try, but when they lean into this, they blow their own minds. It makes me want to cry even thinking about it, but what I've learned, the takeaway, is
there's this burning question inside me, Dallisa. You were living, I don't want to say like muggle wizardry, but there's like, you were living you were living your life, doing your work, like your job, like much more like everyday Samaritan. Yeah. And then you've kind of had this sort of, actually I've had a dream and I started sharing some elements and you started opening up into your gifts. But then your gifts have also been handed through from like 5 generations of your family sort of carrying this. Can you just speak to the context of that a little bit? Because do you think for some part you were like avoiding your gifts to some degree? Or can you tell us a little bit around what was going on there?
well, first off, I appreciate you called me a muggle. Thank you. Yeah.
Sorry.
No, I love
mouth
that
breather.
reference.
No, sorry. Sorry.
Oh my goodness. But you're right. I was literally living my everyday life. I thought I was going along the pathway that everyone or most everyone thinks they should go down, right? Like you have the career. For me, I started a company. I was a matchmaker, if you can believe it, and a dating coach. And I was planning these speed dating events all over the United States. And I thought that was my trajectory. And I went to New York to go to a retreat at the Omega Institute. I'm sure a lot of your audience is familiar with the Omega Institute in New York. And I went up there to go attend a workshop on synchronicity. And that's when literally everything changed and my life got turned upside down. It was overnight, the last night of my trip, where I was staying at a friend's house and his aunt died unexpectedly. And that was the night I fell asleep. I didn't know any of his family. I knew him through a work project that we previously did together. And I could see his aunt. She came to me while I was sleeping. I could see her in the dream state. I made out her facial features. I could see her, and she was speaking to me through telepathy. And I'd never met this woman, didn't know anything about her. And she said, I need you to tell my nephew I'm okay. I made it to the other side. And I woke up the next morning and was like, what planet am I on? What just happened? Because to answer your question, I didn't really plan on being a psychic medium. It was not something I thought that was my gift. My grandmother had it, and she would talk to me about her premonitions, and she would see full body apparitions with her physical eyes walking through her house. She would tell me stories that she would have with her grandmother and how her grandmother would see spirits on the farm and make predictions. And so I was very familiar with all of it, and my family was very open to it. But I just thought I have pretty good intuition. That's what I thought my gifts were. And then when that dream happened with my friend and his aunt coming through, it like almost switched a wire in my brain where it opened up this portal of like, wait a second, this is what my grandmother would used to do and tell me about. And so I flew back to where I was living in Texas at the time. And I'm like, I think my life just drastically changed. And that was 10 years ago. And so I dissolved the company I owned. and decided I was going to become a full time psychic medium. And it happened really quickly. And it's just been off to the races in these last 10 years.
Can I ask you an interesting question in there? The going along to the Omega Institute that time, was it like a natural sort of like, oh yeah, I'm going along for something around synchronicity, or was there like resistance in that moment?
How ironic, right? That I go on a trip to go to a workshop on synchronicity, the study that there are no accidents. And then I have this life changing thing happen the last night of my trip. I feel like I'm in like the Alanis Morissette song, ironic, right? Like that's what I feel like right now, telling this story because I was thrilled to go on that trip, but I booked it last minute. And I think that's an interesting part of the story because I thought I was going to have to be in Texas when the event was happening. And last minute, I found out that I didn't have to. And I ended up finding a really inexpensive flight. There was a spot left in the workshop. Dr. Eben Alexander, who's a neurosurgeon who had a near death experience, he was the one that was leading this retreat. And so I flew up there. There was all these different synchronicities that happened. I just felt like I was in my element and I felt like it was beautiful and where I was supposed to be, but I had no idea that the dream was going to happen on the last night of that trip.
Yeah, the place I come from with that question is of when I had so many of my friends were bugging me to do a starter podcast, and then a mentor appeared to do a podcast, but there was like this internal resistance in me, like not to do it. And then all of a sudden I had to wake up at 4 a.m. and one day and just said, get out of your own way and just do it, you know? And I ended up just doing it. It's like I'm always fascinated by these key moments in our lives, you know? And like you said, it was like hella last minute. It just kind of sort of happened, but it started to flow and I just kept trusting the signs and moving towards it. Um, okay, so you, I mean, for you said for your mother, like for your grandmother, sorry, she had these sort of walk-in like you're a kid. Are you like, were you scared at some point when some of your grandma was pointing out some of these things? Like, was it disturbing at all?
I'd say I was like half terrified, half really intrigued. Being that little kid in her living room. And she would call me Ellie. Her name was Ellie, and she would call me Lisi. And so she'd say, Lisi, do you want to hear what spirit was in my house last night? Do you want to hear what I saw last night? And I would sit there, it would take me a second, and I would look over at her and like take a big breath and go, okay, all right, yeah, tell me. Tell me what you saw. Sure, let's go there. And I really was afraid. And I think that was weaving itself into my gifts years later because I was afraid to see it like she saw it. I didn't want to see it with my own eyes. I thought that that was too scary. And I think going back to your point a minute ago, I think that may have been where some of that resistance was buried like deep down in the subconscious and in my soul. Because when my gifts did drop in, I see things like a daydream. I don't usually see them as a physical type being in front of me. So it looks like a daydream that plays out in front of my line of vision. I'll hear words and phrases that go past my right ear. I'll feel things in my physical body. But yeah, she always loved telling me the stories and she had great joy in it. And years later, I ended up having my own stage show that I started in Las Vegas, where I did readings with audience members. And it's really kind of beautiful to think about. But all those years earlier, when I was in her living room, there was one day she turned to me and she said, Lisa, you're going to need a stage name. And I thought, I was a kid. I was doing the ballet classes and doing theater camp and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, I'm going to be like a cool play one day. Like, that'll be fun, right? Lost on me. So she says, yes, I think you should call yourself Delisa Del Rey. And she spelled out how Del Rey was spelled. And she hands me a piece of paper and a pen and has me practice writing my stage name. And so all those years later, when I started my stage show, I named my production company after her and that prediction. And then I designed the set of the stage to look like her living room. And so that was like my tribute to her all those years later, because she really was instrumental in how this all played out.
That's I mean, I'm feeling into just the lineage of, like, how dowsers used to hand down their gifts as well, and you sort of had to be, like, sort of yeah, part of that to receive it. I wanted to just shine a light on the fear element for a moment there. Not just for yourself, but you've worked with a lot of people coming into their gifts as well. I mean, there is so much fear around. I don't even want to say opening up to it. I mean, even just opening up to considering opening up to it has fear in it. Do you know what I mean? How do you hold or like share or navigate people through all that fear? And why would you want to move towards it?
Great questions. I think that a lot of people are afraid of what other people are going to think. There's a lot of judgment that has come with the idea of being a psychic or exploring your spiritual gifts, and most people I have worked with over this last decade have express that they're afraid to do it because they don't know what their spouse is going to say, or their mom or their dad or their friend circle, or people at work going to find out that they have these abilities or they're interested in learning more about them. So I think that's where it comes from, is the fear of judgment. um, and so I think the more that we give that approval and that love to ourselves, the more we feel more comfortable leaning into our gifts and abilities, because I think they're all natural. I think I was born, or I know I was born with the gifts that were already basically installed into my soul, my genetics, my mind, body, spirit. It was already there. I just had to be open to it and say yes and keep pulling that thread. Um, but I think that we all have these abilities. But I think the biggest roadblock, and you nailed it, is that most people are afraid to even say, "I wanna try." But I've noticed that when they say, "Okay, I think I'm just gonna get curious and lean into this," they blow their own minds with what they get intuitively, the types of dreams they start having that contain, premonitions. They start feeling like they are one with their life and with the universe, and they feel those synchronicities. But I think the biggest challenge is getting them to the point where they say yes, because after that, I feel like it just gets easier, in my opinion.
It's a very interesting time that we're alive. I mean, even in the last 10 years when you first started this work versus where we are now, I mean, the receptivity, people's appetite, people's openness, you must have seen it shift rather dramatically.
It has shifted. I think people are becoming more open. And I also think there's a correlation between the world going through major events, whether it's the pandemic or it's war. We're just going through a really interesting, combustible time. And so I think when we have those challenges, people are more likely or interested in asking themselves, is there more to this? Is there something else I could be leaning into? Um, or is this it? So I think people are starting to ask bigger questions about themselves and the purpose of life and their soul and what happens after we pass away, because there's so much conflict that they're seeing either in their own city, their country, or in other parts of the world. It's just becoming more prevalent. And so I think people are starting to dig a little bit deeper into why they're here and everything that comes with it.
Yeah, what I'm hearing is like the fabric of the known world is kind of like it is a bit stretchy and it's getting a bit more tense. And in there, potentially going other places to find some answers, to try and do some sense making in and around all
Yeah,
of that.
absolutely. And I think it helps people feel not so alone. When you start realizing that you're connected to this bigger energy or God or the universe, however you want to refer to it as. But once you really start understanding that you have that deep connection, then I think you start to feel less alone. And I think you start to feel that every living being matters even more than maybe what you thought originally. Because a lot of us go through life loving our family, our friends, our pets, nature. But I've just found through, speaking with so many people about their awakening experience, once you go through an awakening and you see it and the light switch goes on, you can't unsee it. And so you start to just notice things differently. And I even find that communicating with animals is different now, or, sitting in nature, it just feels different on this side of the awakening than before.
Hey there, guys. Hopefully, you're loving this conversation. I'd just love to take a quick moment of your time to ask for a special favor and request. Please hit subscribe to the channel. The entire channel you're witnessing, you're participating in, you're a part of here is empowered by your subscription. It's you that powers this channel along. Please take a moment to hit subscribe. Thank you so much in advance. Back to the episode. I'm not sure if I should ask you or your guides this question. Sorry, touch wood. But do you see more and more people opening up into their gifts now? Given where we are, like over the coming times, like are more and more people opening into this awareness?
Absolutely, without a doubt. I channel a lot, and some of the things that I've been shown are people leaning into these gifts and exploring what it means to them. And I think telepathy is going to become even more of a practice. I know that the podcast, the telepathy tapes, was pretty recent and widely popular. So going along that thread, I do feel like, just like my dream with the woman who had died, she was speaking to me telepathically in my dream. Her mouth wasn't moving, but I got the information. And my grandmother would always talk about telepathy and how it would just drop into her head. And I do think that's a natural state for humans, but I think that so much fear and low vibrational things like shame, sadness, I think it weighs the frequency down. And so, with more and more people getting curious, because I think curiosity is a higher vibration, then I think there's going to be a tipping point where more and more people will get curious. But I think it's us actually returning to more of a natural state. And I think it could be tied to some of our origins, because even when I do client work, sometimes there will be a variety of different types of beings that will come in. So, an example would be a spirit guide. And a spirit guide feels um, almost like the energy of logic, if I'm going to describe it that way. Angelic frequency feels lighter, just like somebody may imagine like a feather or a cloud feeling. When a galactic being steps in, they are at a higher pitch, a higher frequency. And I think that we as a species here on Earth, we are moving closer into that frequency that's that higher pitch. And so, with that, I think we're going to be connecting with other kinds of galactic beings, but I don't think it's going to be scary. And so, why I bring that up is because Spirit is literally flashing in front of me right now, the movie Arrival. And for anyone that hasn't seen it, go run and watch it. It's spectacular. And sometimes, yes, I fantasize about being the woman in the movie who's the interpreter for the for the aliens. I'm
She's a
like, I could,
linguist, right? She does the
yes,
linguistic, yeah.
I'm like, I could do that. Because I do think it's telepathy. I think that we can communicate with different kinds of beings. I don't think that we have to go find the alien race that only speaks English, right? It's like, no, we're dealing with energy here. So I think that we're going to be moving back into that space that many of us have had before in other lifetimes, where those were just natural things that we did. So I'm actually looking forward to where we're headed. But between now and then, there's a lot that happens between those two touch points.
Can you tell us more about what you believe happens between those two touch points?
Ooh, yeah. Where do I start? There's a lot that's gonna there's a lot. Okay. I'd like to describe it, I think, first by saying the visual I get from spirit. If you've ever seen like a puppeteer that has marionettes, the puppets, the strings that they're holding. So hopefully your audience doesn't mind, but we're the puppets. And so we're on the strings, right? Like that's what I get symbolically from spirit is, we've lived in a way, at least in the recent decades, where we kind of have an idea of what our life should be. A lot of people think, at least in the United States, okay, I'm going to go to college, I'm going to marry somebody, have a couple kids, maybe start a business, like there's all these things, we're told that we should do. And I think that we're going to be breaking out of a lot of those patterns that we've had. I think humans will end up feeling a lot more liberated in a lot of ways. But right now, I think we're those puppets realizing that there's some strings and we're starting to question, wait, what is this? What's going on? Like we were talking about a minute ago of like, why am I here? Why did my soul choose to be here? These bigger questions. What's my purpose? So we're starting to notice that there's strings. I also think we're in this frequency of the movie The Truman Show. And that's also such a great movie. But I feel like it's becoming like fact rather than like a fictional movie where I even find myself sometimes wondering, like, what are we living in right now? Is there some kind of simulation? Is there some kind of dimension that we're in that's a container for this experience of Earth School? So I think that those are a couple things that we're like moving through is the puppets and the Truman Show. But now that we're starting to wake up more and more and people are becoming more aware of this, going back to the term like tipping point, I think we're going to enter into a time in the near future where more and more people see the strings and go, wait a second, I thought my life was going to be this, this, and this, and it's not working out like I thought it was going to. So now I'm having to rethink why I'm here and what's going to make me feel fulfilled in this lifetime because I think a lot of people are questioning their own fulfillment.
Yeah, it's yeah, I call it white picket fence lane that we're sort of being guided down. And then it's just more and more people are like, yo, what's going on over here? Just like, yeah. And I think it's just naturally coming through more and more for people. I mean, one of the questions I had for you today was, is the veil getting thinner or are we becoming more attuned to the other side of the veil? Or like, yeah, do you understand my question?
I do.
Does it make
Yeah.
sense?
I
Your thoughts on
think
that?
I think it's because more of us are interested in looking at it. It's almost like what you focus on expands. And so I think because we're getting more interested and we feel like something's just off, that it's revealing itself more to us. But I think that it's always been there. I think if we're attuned to the right frequency, that we can explore that whenever we want, which I think is a lot of the psychic work or mediumship work is being attuned to the right frequency and that frequency being a match for what you are attempting or leaning into to get information. Because I think psychic information or looking at what events could transpire, that is one frequency. And so we get our frequency high enough as an individual, and we can then start pulling in psychic predictions, you could say, or downloads, right? Working with our clair gifts. Mediumship is higher than that in my experience. And so you have to get your frequency even higher to then meet where spirit is at. And I don't think spirit is often some far off portion of the clouds. And I don't mean that to be insulting to anyone, but I don't think that they're removed in this place that we can't get to. I actually think they're like right on the other side of the wall. And anytime I've ever done mediumship, the spirit shows up in front of me, basically like hovering a few feet off the ground. But they never say, like, oh, it took me a long time to get here. It's always like, oh, yeah, hi. So I know that they're close by. So I think more and more people will be feeling downloads and getting psychic information just because we're focusing more of our attention and curiosity there. But I've been shown a lot of information about where we're at if nothing changed, right? Because I do believe in free will and I do believe in fate. And I think we have both. And so there are likelihoods of what we could be entering into, everything from money to housing to food to jobs. I mean, you name it, our lives are really going to be changing very, very rapidly, especially as we bring on new technologies and artificial intelligence. So we can talk about, what we see coming in and what I've downloaded as a psychic, but I do think that us as humans are going to play into that as well because are we are we going to lean into more of the peace and more into that curiosity and coming together heart to heart with each other, or is that spike in the frequency that will be available to us, is that going to cause madness or mania or an increase in the volatility that we're seeing in the world? I think it's probably going to be both. I think there's going to be people that are going to be really opening up to that frequency and seeing the new world and what we're in. And then I think that there are a lot of other people that may decide, I don't, I don't want to do that. And as a soul, without any judgment, they can make that choice for themselves. But I do think there's going to be some duality for a bit here in this section of time that we find ourselves in between where we're at now and where I think the future human is. So there's a lot that happens in a relatively short amount of time between these 2 points.
I mean, it's extremely fascinating, and I think a few people have sort of alluded, and yeah, in my awareness at the moment, there's this one thing that some people have sort of prescribed this particular time that we're moving into potentially being the time of revelations, that was pointed to, in early days. But then also the original title of the book of Revelations apparently was of apocalypses. And the apocalypses, actually the literal translation of that, or the etymology of that, is something to do with the veil thinning, or the veil, or the curtains parting, or the veil lifting, or something like that, is actually the literal translation of what the word apocalypse actually means. And yeah, so there's that frequency of like the end of something and the beginning of something new, actually, is what it was pointing to. Touch wood. And so, yeah, it's really interesting feeling into what you're describing, and sort of, yeah, just even some of the misnomers that we might have in terms of, like you said, you're speaking to the duality piece. Like there might be like, certain things happening this way, certain things happening that way, but it's quite interesting feeling into, yeah, just the dynamic of how things are going to shift through this period. And one of the things you were sharing there, I think I just wanted to clarify up, because I think it was revelatory for me to hear you say that, is so you've kind of got like our inner sort of understanding, I just want to call it everyday functioning logic. And then we've kind of got a layer above that in our openness, our intuition is what I heard. And then from there, a layer above that, you actually have your psychic abilities, right? And then a layer above that, you've got mediumship. And then a layer above that is like kind of spirit, and then a layer above that, I imagine, is, there's more to go. But I mean, just even having that in your awareness is quite profound, because I think people sort of conflate, one with the other, with the other, with the other, with the other as well, right?
Yeah, I see it as that scale. And I think that there's things that you can do that can shift your frequency to match the frequency that you're intending to go into or to work with. Drinking water, moving your body, eating healthy, high vibration foods. One of the things that I have used over the years that has really attuned my frequency is binaural beats and listening to different frequencies. And that has shown to me over and over again, it is the fastest way that I can just drop like right into the frequency of channeling. And so Dr. Eben Alexander, even though he doesn't know this part of my story, because I met him at that retreat in New York, he and Karen are behind the company Sacred Acoustics. Well, Sacred Acoustics is literally the meditation that I've used over the years to channel. And they have no idea that they started like this whole Pandora's box opening for me a decade ago. One day I'll tell them. But yeah, so binaural beats, I just feel like it gets the brain into the frequency. It's almost like an antenna being shifted into the right signal.
And so when you refer to a spirit team, I think for some people there's guides, for some people there's angels, for some people there's ancestors. Like there's a whole myriad of things that can open up like a pantheon almost of of characters that can show up to support you on your journey. I mean, generally speaking, like everybody's got different guides, I imagine. But what are the ones that you most commonly encounter?
I usually feel the ancestors step in as a main energy that's connecting with someone. And angels, I work with all the time. And sometimes it's a guardian angel of a person, but I work with archangels a lot as well. But you can call on angels. They usually don't interfere unless you ask them specifically for help. But there's all kinds of information you can find online about which archangels help with different things in your life. And you can just ask them. I ask them all the time. I do channeled work with the archangels. I work with Archangel Michael and Raphael probably the most. Spirit guides will pop in a little bit during sessions, but to me, it feels like when I'm connecting with a client, for example, and I'm doing a reading about their life, I feel like I'm tuning into their soul, like the highest part of their soul. And I get questions about this a lot. Well, how are you talking to the highest part of my soul? Or, well, where am I if I'm here on earth and then there's a soul someplace else? Like, what is that? So, what I've pieced together through doing this work is a part of the highest part of our soul is here on earth in a human body, in this costume, right? But the highest part of ourself is actually still on what I call the other side. And we can connect with the highest part of our soul and ask ourselves questions and see it from that 30,000-foot level. And it's the same reason why um, reincarnation works. And I get questions a lot about, well, how am I able to greet my dad on the other side, but I'm here? And like, how does that work? But it's because the highest part of our soul is still connected on the other side. And so it's not like you're missing each other through lifetimes of like, oh, I'm going to go live this lifetime in China and you're on the other side. And then whoops, you're coming into the Netherlands and I've decided to go back to the other side. So we always have like that home base of our own soul on the other side, and souls recognize souls. And so you don't necessarily need to be in like the same look that you have now in this lifetime when you cross over. All of that kind of goes away, and it's just us being souls connecting with each other again.
Can you describe a little bit of the frequency of Archangel Raphael and Archangel Michael a little bit to us?
Yes. And Metatron's the other one I work with a lot too.
Okay, tell us more.
Archangel,
Yeah,
what's that?
tell us more. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So Archangel Michael comes through energetically very, very strong, very powerful energy. He is the one that I go to when I need to clear any energy, if there is something emotional even that's feeling heavy on someone, or they're trying to process through something and they feel like they can't quite get all the way through it. Archangel Michael comes and lifts the energy off of individuals or a situation. So anytime I need to do like a chakra clearing, he's the one that I go to. Archangel Raphael feels powerful, but a little softer. I would describe his energy, and it's such a good question because I would describe him as like that really caring bedside doctor who's like sitting next to you in the hospital, holding your hand, telling you, like, it's going to be okay. We're going to figure this out, you know? And so Archangel Raphael is the one I call in if there's ever anything with the physical body or emotional health. And so he comes in with beautiful green energy and helps. I must be channeling him today. And Archangel Metatron is like the third one that I work with a lot. I actually work with him specifically on looking at past lives. And he and Archangel Michael are the two that I work with in the Hall of Records when I go in there to look at someone's past life information. So all three of them help me in slightly different ways.
This podcast is brought to you by my one-to-one mentorship. The podcast is designed to inspire your evolution onwards, upwards, and inwards. And if you're ready to dive in even deeper and evolve your career, your leadership, and business in a conscious direction, and you believe that alignment to your purpose and your soul's direction is the only way to truly thrive into your highest potential, and right now you can feel that guidance, mentoring, and coaching would be of support, then my one-to-one mentorship coupled with our incredible conscious group masterminds is here for you. Thousands of people have evolved through my mentoring over the last 10 years. It is, after all, my highest calling, and here's what they have to say about how it's transformed their life.
I don't even recognize myself from 3 years ago. I don't recognize myself from a year ago. All of these things that I've been wanting to manifest in my life, I have them now.
This entire year has been a complete transformation.
He is literally just there to put wind in your sails.
He really seems to love his work and his clients. He's going to squeeze all the juice out of life and encourage his clients to do the same.
Amrit definitely delivered more than I expected. I was able to steer it in the right way, the way my soul needed to hear. I think that's what makes him so unique as a coach.
He's wonderful. He really can help to do wonders with your project. Go for it.
So if you're ready to dive in even deeper to take your inspirations and truly evolve, then make your way over to my website at amritsandu.com. I'll put a link in the description below. You don't have to go it alone. There's one-to-one mentoring and an incredible community mastermind of conscious leaders, entrepreneurs, and people transforming their careers and business into full alignment with their soul's highest calling, creating a life that inspires them on the deepest level, living into their greatest impact. And as many of you know, connection is my highest value, so I'm looking forward to connecting with you. Use the button below, use the link below, amritsandu.com/call. That's AMRIT Sandu, SANDHU.com/call. It's on screen for you now. And if you follow that link, you'll be able to book in a call directly with me. I'm looking forward to connecting with you. So go on, I'll see you there. I'm not sure how to not ask about the Hall of Records now. What is this Hall of Records?
Yeah, it's your show. You can ask whatever you want. Yes. So the Hall of Records, again, does not feel like some far off land that we have to go travel to. I go into deep meditation and basically bring my consciousness to this area that I describe as also being on the other side. And I can see the grand staircase, and the building looks like a really old library. And I take myself up these stairs into the library. I connect with Archangels Michael and Metatron. They take me into the place within the records hall. And I can ask them, whether it's for me or if it's someone else, show me where this record, this file is, or files, and let's go explore. I then will take it a step further. And if there's something happening for me or someone else and they they're having trouble in this lifetime and they can't figure out, why do I have this pattern? Maybe it's I'm always broke. I don't have enough money, right? I will ask the archangel specifically, show me a file that contains a lifetime where this was an issue, or show me multiple lifetimes where this has come up, because it's not always going to be the same movie, the same exact way that it's manifesting as it is in this lifetime as you did in the other lifetimes. But a pattern between all of them, a thread will start to emerge. And by explaining how this pattern and thread has shown up in these other lifetimes, it's almost like the light bulb goes off and you go, oh my gosh, I had no idea that I was, this monk that took a vow of poverty, and that I feel connected to not wanting to charge for being a psychic or a card reader. It's like you start looking at all of these different things that have come up, and you see just their whole energy field shift and change, where it's like that piece of information, that awareness about other lifetimes and what they chose to do in those lifetimes and how they're actually connected to this one. That's like the liberation and the freedom, where they go, wow, I feel like I can set myself free now and go and live the life that I want to live in this lifetime, instead of still carrying around all of the other things that I thought I needed to carry into this one. We can mark those lessons as done and complete. So that's how I access the records and work with them. And then Archangel Michael, once we look at the different records, I ask him specifically to help us, meaning me, and if I have a client with me in the Hall of Records, to do the energy work there in the hall, to release the energy and to mark those lessons as done and complete. And so the person that I'm working with, if we're looking at their past lives, they don't need to be a psychic medium in order to go. They don't need to see anything in their mind's eye about the Hall of Records, but I explain it to them as I go through it and what I am experiencing and seeing. And I don't remember it afterwards, so I always audio record it for them. And then I come back, after doing the channeling, and they're like, oh my gosh, all these things make sense. And so I found that those past life readings can be incredibly helpful to feel like you've unlocked some magic box in this lifetime. And I just find that people usually move through their life a little bit easier after one of those sessions. And there's a lot of people out there that do past life, either meditations or hypnosis. There's QHHT, and some of their practitioners will do past life sessions. And so there's a variety of different ways you can do it, but that's how I approach it.
Is the work predominantly available for yourself to apply on others, or does it also apply for yourself to work on for yourself? And if so, what are one of the more shocking things that happened to you as you went through your own records, or something that shifted in there?
Oh, yeah. So I have done work on my past lives. I have actually gone into hypnosis, and I have someone else lead me through it so that I can fully just be in it while someone else is the guide. And that's been the best experience for me. It's not the same with psychic information always. I think it's harder for me to see predictions about myself. I'll feel intuitive nudges and I'll have an idea of where it's going, but it's harder for me to see specifics about my own life. It's easier for me to see it for other people. But I remember one of my very first past life memories, and I could see myself. I was African American woman, and I was a slave in the field. And what's really interesting about that past life memory is one of my dear friends in this lifetime has had the same past life recall. And I have chills that I'm even saying this to you. So she and I know that we had a past life together in that way, as being slaves. And it makes me want to cry even thinking about it. But what I've learned, the takeaway, is one of my big missions in this lifetime that my soul wanted to learn was how to love myself and to feel worthy and to feel lovable. And so it's no surprise in hindsight that one of the first past life memories that comes through is a lifetime where I felt absolutely worthless. And I know through looking at several lifetimes that I have a pattern of different experiences uh, where I felt not good enough. And I'm determined in this lifetime, now that I've seen it from this angle, to really dig in deep and learn that lesson and heal all of those different lifetimes that I've had, because I don't necessarily want to carry this through to the next one and wherever it is that I incarnate.
I'm conscious at this juncture in the conversation, it sounds like it's all healing. And it's all get in there, put on your rubber
Surprise!
gloves, get your spray and wipe out, start to clean everything down. It's like, but there is also this element of guidance, right? Touch wood. Like it can also provide like ways, like I want to say light markers for kind of where you're headed into the future as well. There's an opportunity to heal your stuff, but there's also an opportunity to be guided. I mean, as you were with, how perfect, synchronicity, and then the synchronicity started to drop in, with yourself and the Omega Institute. Um, is there a different kind of way to work, sort of going backwards versus going forwards, for people, or is it much the same how it all drops in?
In terms of learning, like the healing piece of it.
Well, the piece of like when you're opening up to such abilities, is working on the past the same as working into the future in terms of what you see coming forward?
Great question. I think that it's both. I think it's equally important. Maybe not so much to try to understand the future, which may sound strange because I'm a psychic medium and I make a lot of predictions, but I think the present moment and the past hold the most keys, um, because what we're feeling right now, any emotions that we have, I think that they're amazing. They're incredible because whatever we're feeling is ours. And if you get deep enough and curious enough into anything you're feeling, you're going to find that it ties back to something that's happened either earlier in your lifetime now, and or it's come up in other past lives or other incarnations that you've had. Um, but I think there's a lot of people that I see and over these last 10 years that really want to know the future. They really want to know what's coming. And I don't think that's where the real work comes in. Once we get to the future, we'll figure it out and we'll be led and we'll feel source energy and we'll feel connected and we'll know intuitively what to do with that. But I think it can be seductive to want to know what's coming in the future. A lot of people want to know what's going to happen in their own personal life. But I think the real work that our soul incarnated for is now and what we're feeling right now, and then what we haven't processed from the past. I had a teacher, incredible teacher, and at one point she said to me, everything that we're feeling, every emotion that's coming up in our body, it can tie back to three core root energies: the need for approval, the desire for safety, or you want to control. And so if you can dig into anything you're feeling and ask, is this me looking for approval, safety, or control? And you really lean into that and start to understand where that could have come from. Even just the acknowledgement, the awareness of, wow, yeah, this is me just trying to feel loved because I don't feel loved right now. And then that awareness already starts to diminish the power that your emotion has over you or what you've been feeling once you get underneath the hood of what that core energy really is.
I've got a weird question about core energies. When you like, I mean, what happens in your nervous system when spirit steps in? Like, do you feel like is there a somatic signature to truth?
Yeah, I get chills that come up my legs. And if it's if it's something they really want to make sure that I hear, they bring the chills all the way up through my body. And then a few moments later, they'll start again and they'll go up my feet, up my legs again, like all the way up through my body. So mine is chills. Some people will get chills in their arms. Some people will feel them like in their head. So different parts of the body can be a signature for a spirit coming in. So I would pay attention to anything that you feel in the physical body, um, any kind of feeling that you're getting, because when you become more sensitive to the energies, you usually start picking up on it rather quickly, and you'll understand what your signature is that they're giving you because they're working with you, they're working with your energy. And it's a two-way street. And so maybe you're listening to this and you're like, I don't ever get a sign. How come I don't ever feel chills up my legs? You can ask them. You can say spirit, universe, guides, however you want to address them. And you can say, send me a sign when you're around and work with them. I tell my psychic students all the time, I'm like, if you get a message, whether it's something you're seeing, hearing, feeling, if you don't understand what it is, you better ask them to give it to you a different way because it's a two-way street. So if you don't understand it, just say, hey, show that to me a different way. I don't understand what you're trying to tell me. Or I think you might be here, but I'm not sure. Can you send me a signal through my physical body that you're here? So it's a two-way street. So keep that in mind. It's not that you're just this person that has to receive all of the things. It's like, no, you can work with them. They're working with you. And so you can build a relationship with your spirit team.
Can we dive into that a little bit deeper, please? Because I think most people tuning into this podcast will have a relationship with synchronicity where they're going along on their timeline and things boom drop in and it's like, whoa, okay, I can pay attention to that. Like I know that's a sign. Yeah. But what you've just alluded to is actually your signs. You actually have like they're not just dropping in from above, you actually have an opportunity to communicate to them from below as well. And actually building a bit of a dialogue in terms of I'd like to see a sign or I'd like to see this on my way. Can you unpack that a little bit further and just double click on that a little bit? Yeah.
Double click. I love that. Yes. I think it's important to sit and write and journal and meditate. A lot of people ask, what's the first thing I can do to get better at becoming more psychic? You got to set that intention. You have to carve out time to do it. But it doesn't have to take a long period of time. It can be 5 minutes of meditation a day. It can be 10 minutes of journaling. There's a book called The Artist's Way. And one of the things that's in the book, it's beautiful, is they call it morning pages. And they say you just wake up and you have to write 3 pages and you're not done until you write 3 pages. And I know some people are like cringing hearing that, but I'll tell you, writing 3 pages in the morning, it starts to open you up and give you realizations that you didn't have before. And in doing it myself, I think it was my higher self that was stepping in and giving me guidance through those pages that I was writing. And so I think we can make this simpler for ourselves. I don't think we have to create some big checklist of I have to do all these things in order to be psychic or have better intuition. I think it's more of like, I'm going to do this, making that decision that I'm going to be more open to it. And I'm going to treat it like a relationship that I'm building. And so if I'm building a relationship and maybe journaling is a pathway for me to get there, how can you start opening up that pathway even more? I think you can write a question at the top of a page and sit there and wait. And some people like to, turn on meditation as their meditation music as they're doing it. But one of the questions I like to ask is, what do I need to know today? And then I sit there with pen and paper and I just start writing. And sometimes you have to write the first few words to get it going, but it's a really simple, easy way to start communicating with your higher self. And if you're like, well, I want to communicate with my guardian angel that has been assigned to me since birth, Great. Set that intention that that is the energy that you want to connect with. Maybe it's that you want to connect with your grandmother that passed away. Set that intention. You can write on the piece of paper, Grandma, what do I need to know today? And allow yourself to surrender, allow yourself to step out of the way and just be in the present moment and release all expectations. I think we get in our head a lot about, oh, if I'm going to sit down and write, I hope I get something good. It's like, let it go. Let it go. Because when we let go of the expectations and we just allow ourselves to show up and ask the questions, it's quite profound what can come through when we open up enough space within ourselves, within our hearts, to allow the information to come through.
Alyssa, are there any dangers to opening up to these abilities?
Great question. Because I've worked over the years with looking at entities, and I've even worked with spirits that have been killed and they've been stuck in places where they have been killed, and asking them, do you want to move to the light? And I've had some spirits tell me they do not want to move to the light and they want to stay where they're at because they feel like they're still on a mission or serving a purpose where they are. And that has been in homes, that has been in businesses. Um, but then there are some spirits that say, oh, yes, absolutely. I don't want to be here. I want to move over. I just don't understand like what happened to me. So usually it's connected to a way that they passed. Like maybe they were killed unexpectedly. And for some reason they didn't quite comprehend or get all of the information from that passing to be able to seamlessly move up into the light. And there's no time for spirit, so the person who's been killed doesn't know if they've been gone for 30 seconds, 30 days, 30 years. So they can be in that place. It's also when I call on Archangel Michael a lot, is when I do energy work like that, because some energy may be denser. There may be a spirit that is earthbound that did really horrible things while they're alive. And so I enter every situation when I'm working with energy with that in mind, because I don't always know what kind of energy I'm going to encounter, especially if I go into like a haunted building and I'm checking to see, what's in there. There could be spirits in there that don't want to leave and frankly probably didn't live with the best of intentions while they were alive. And their energy is going to project what it is that they embodied while they were alive. And so it does take I do take precautions with Archangel Michael and protecting my energy. And also, anytime energy work is done, it's really important to clear your energy, because you don't want to pick up hitchhikers from either in person or doing work over the phone or Zoom. Like it all is the same, it's all interconnected. And so anytime you're doing any kind of work virtually or in person, you should really clear your energy and get back to your own self. Because what I noticed is, if you're doing a lot of energy work or you're sensitive, because there's a lot of people that are empathic, they may be feeling a certain way and it's not even theirs. And so one of the most important questions you can ask, especially right now with all the volatility that we have, is if you're feeling emotions go through your body and you're having a hard time putting your finger on why you're feeling those things, you can ask yourself, is this mine? And wait intuitively for the answer, because more and more I think people are realizing that what they're feeling isn't even their own personal life. It's something that they picked up either from the world or watching something on the news, or they were standing next to somebody at the gas station or the grocery store that was going through something, and they didn't know that they were that sponge, that empathic sponge that was picking up energy from people and environments and things that they're consuming in the media.
How do you invite people to learn how to do the energetic housekeeping elements? Yeah, what are some basic ways that people can go about that?
I think some of the easiest ways we can do it is the use of water in our own home, because salt baths have been my go-to for years and years, and I know that the rumors are not exactly true in my experience, but I'll take a piece of selenite. People have said, don't take selenite, but I'll drop it in the bath water because the rumor is it'll dissolve in bath water. That has not been my experience. And so I'll take a stick of selenite and throw it in there and take a bath and just allow that water and the salt, like Epsom salt, a lot of people do, or you could do like pink Himalayan salt. And then if you've got the selenite either in the bath water or next to you, then that will help clear your energy. And if you don't like baths, you don't have a bathtub, if you're in the shower, you can ask that water to come down over the front of you and clear your energy, and then turn and do the same for your backside. But water has a lot of beautiful energy to help us clear very, very easily. And even like behind me, I have this little water fountain that's going, because it's in this space. I do a lot of my energy work. And so the water is helping to even clear the space while I'm in here. So I don't think we have to necessarily like go out and buy a bunch of things that we don't already have. I think even standing, in your home or out at the park or wherever you find yourself, you can use your hand as like a brush, and you can say something to the effect of, any energy that is not mine, go back to source for healing. Be gone, be gone, be gone. And brush your whole body, brush down your arms and your legs. I would say it a bit more forcefully than that. But I usually say it 3 to 5 times as I'm really brushing with my hand. And you'll feel it. Like with practice, you'll start to feel your energy shift, where you feel it like relax and like pop off of you basically. And that's free. And you can do that wherever you're at. But those are the go-tos I typically do because they're the easiest. I like simplicity, and I like things that I can do almost anywhere. So those are the things I usually suggest for people to try when they want to clear themselves. And even if you don't think you picked up anything throughout the day, maybe you're not doing energy work anywhere, you still are coming in contact with people that you're around in different physical locations, or people that you're talking to on the phone or email at work, right? And so I would make it a practice of brushing your body and your energy, I would say every night or whenever it is that you're ending your day, as just a part of your relaxation routine.
Yeah, and it's interesting how these tools can sometimes pair in together, because you mentioned Archangel Michael before, and then you mentioned selenite just then. And actually, the two actually have a pretty strong connection, do they not?
With Archangel Michael and who?
And selenite, like as
Oh,
in the
selenite.
actual,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. Sorry, I call it
Yeah.
selenite. Sorry,
No,
Australia.
absolutely. No,
It's
all
really
good.
interesting how the tools kind of sometimes pair. I don't call an angel a tool, but do you know what I mean? Like, it's weird how those things. Well, it's almost too serendipity. Yeah, I don't know. I guess you get the point. I'm trying to. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, both Archangel Michael and selenite can help us clear away what's no longer ours or what's no longer in our highest and best interest. So, yeah, and some people might like the physical representation of having a piece of selenite. So that just may work better for them. But there may be the next person that's like, I love working with angels. I'd love to talk to Archangel Michael and get his help. So I would just say do what works for you. I don't think you have to do all of the things in order to be successful at clearing your energy. If I were, guiding and teaching someone, I'd say pick 1 or 2 things that you really like that feel aligned with you, and just do those things. Because sometimes we can get in our head and think of all the things we have to do in order to do it right. And I just don't think we can really screw it up that bad. So I would just say pick a thing or 2 and do those.
Can we speak to that just a little bit further? Just the fear element, because sometimes what happens is you're trying to clear your space based on an element of fear versus the element of clearing your space from a place of like, self-love, self-care, self-restoration. But there's quite a different delta between those two things, right? Because in terms of how you end up actually doing the work in those elements, can you describe that a little bit further, please?
Great question. I do think we attract what we are. And so if we are going into a space, maybe it's our home or a business, and we call in Archangel Michael because we're so afraid that there's something that's happened and we want it cleared. I think it's actually harder to clear energy in those types of situations if you yourself are embodying the energy of fear, because whatever our frequency and belief is at, that's what we're going to be bringing more into. And so I would say in that kind of situation, do a guided meditation first. Do like 5, 10, 15 minutes. Do something that maybe feels very heart centering, something that just feels like it's replenishing your own battery, where you just feel like you can relax into it. And then I would go and clear your space. Because if you feel really afraid and you're trying really hard to get rid of something, it's probably not going to leave, or it might leave temporarily and then you'll bring it back in because of what your vibration is at. And this brings me to a point about cord cutting, because over the years, people have asked me, like, oh, help me cut these cords to my ex boyfriend or whatever the story is, right? And I back in the day, I would try it with like, okay, let's just cut the energy and let's see what happens. And what I found through doing this so often is that when we actually, in this example, send the ex-boyfriend love, unconditional soul to soul love, where we just accept what it is. We accept whatever the heartbreak is as part of what Earth School is trying to teach us. And we understand, we're not getting back together. Okay. And you're just sending them from your heart into their heart, just the most love you can possibly muster up. That actually works a lot better and it lasts a lot longer than trying to go in and cut a cord between you and someone else.
That is profound. Thank you for sharing that. That actually dovetails into a question that I had for you because, you mentioned before your past life, as yeah, I won't bring it back up because you said it almost brought you to tears. But there was this whole element around, yeah, self-worth and self-love. And I was going to ask, like, how did becoming or stepping more into your psychic abilities change your ability um, to love yourself and to be loved fully?
Hmm. I had to stop caring what other people thought, because I recognized that all of those gifts dropping in was part of what I signed up for in this lifetime. And so if I didn't lean into those gifts, then I feel like I would have been almost telling God or the universe, like, you don't know what you're doing. Thinking like, oh, well, I'll just stay over here in this other lane doing what I was doing. But I feel like by leaning into the gifts that I know I was given, it's honoring God in that way, because I do feel like it was given to me as a gift. And so coming to that conclusion and knowing that this was meant for me, then I just had to rip the Band-Aid off. And I had a couple of people that were not nice, from my life that I've, on social media, when I'm like, oh, hey, by the way, I'm a psychic medium now, and you go online. Um, but what was really funny about the whole thing is there was only a couple of people that were kind of rude about it. But then I had people from years throughout my life that sent me messages saying, oh, yeah, I knew you were psychic, and you would always talk about your intuition and different things that you thought were going to happen. And I would sit there and go, are you kidding me? Like, I did that? So I think I was doing it even before like my personality and my ego figured it out. But I think that's common for people. I think other people see things in us that we don't always see in ourselves. And so I think it can take that big jolt or that big change where we take a step back and figure out, well, who am I now? That we start piecing together some of these breadcrumbs that were there all along.
Having tuned in so many ways for so many people, I mean, how do you land in the relationship? Because I heard you sort of say there is fate and there's also free will. Can you describe your awareness of the dynamic between the two and how you land in the relationship between the two?
Ooh, I think before we're born, we plot out some things in our life. I think that we make soul contracts with different people. And soulmate's a word, that's talked about a lot. I don't think soulmate has to be romantic. I've just seen so many soul contracts when I'm doing readings over the years that it can be your boss. It doesn't necessarily have to be the boss you liked, right? But somebody that's going to potentially hold a really big, valuable mirror up to you. It can be the person that you married. Frankly, it can be the person you divorced. It can be your kids. There's all different kinds of soul contracts. So, those are relationships that I believe we initiate before we incarnate. I love astrology. I think that we also map out what chart we're going to be born with. There's just way too many synchronizations with astrology that it's like undeniable for me. But I think we plot out some of those things and some key events in our life, things that somebody at the end of their life might refer back to as like a huge turning point. So I do think that there are some of those things that we select. I also have been shown that we select several exit points. And I graciously refer to death as exit points. But I think we pick what some different potentials could be for our exits when we're called back to the other side. But then I think there's a lot of in between that's up to us. But I believe wholeheartedly that before we were born, we decided, okay, I'm going to go down there. Yeah, I know it's going to be around 2025 when I'm X amount of years old. Okay, fine. Yeah, I'll do it anyway. This is what I want to learn. I want to learn self-worth. I want to learn, how to value myself and others, whatever. You can create like your little list on the other side. And then, God in the universe goes, okay, well, who's your parents this time? And you look around and you're like, you want to do it? Like, come on. So, and then you come in. But I think it's all designed for growth and evolution. I I think sometimes our soul gets really excited that we get to experience the pleasures of being human, like eating key lime pie or whatever it is you like, right? I think there's things that we just love about the human experience. But for the most part, our soul knew that Earth School was going to be a very advanced classroom and that this particular time that we are alive in, there is a whole heck of a lot that's going to dismantle. And we were the ones that said, I'm going in. And God said, yeah, you go. Yeah, that's a great idea. And so we're down here now, having taken this like amnesia as we went through the birth canal. And here we are. And we're looking around, kind of like what we were talking about earlier with the Truman Show. We're like peeking behind the veil. It's like we're starting to remember that this is a school and that it's not just, I'm going to go get a college degree and I'm going to go have 2.5 kids and build the fence, right? This is more like, oh, yeah, I'm a powerful soul that wanted to learn these different things, and Earth School was a great fit for me. So here I am. So we're all just kind of, I know it's been said before, but we're all here walking each other back home, which is the other side.
Talking about the other side, your work, how do you see it? Or can like I'm sorry, a couple of presumptions already in the way I'm asking the question. Um, how does it help other people with their relationship with death?
I think mediumship has been such an important part of my own experience here on earth, but also I think it's been the most profound for my clients. Um,
How so? Yeah.
I never thought I would do this, right? And so to be put in a position where I physically am the between another person and somebody that has transitioned over to the other side. I think through those sessions, those individuals have realized, like, wow, we really don't die. We actually do go somewhere else. I think it gives people a lot of peace and comfort knowing that the bonds of love never end. And even if a relationship was volatile on earth, like maybe it's a child that's still alive here, an adult child, and they had a parent that has passed away that they didn't have a great relationship with for whatever reason. Mediumship can be used as a way to bring the person and the spirit of their parent together to heal what happened during the lifetime that their parent had with them. And so I think it can be incredibly therapeutic to go to a reputable medium that does have the ability to speak to people on the other side, because I view mediumship as a sacred exchange and one that can be very intense and very emotional. And I would even add, if there's somebody listening to this that's like, oh, I want to go see a medium, what a great idea. I would take a beat, I would take a pause, I'd take a big deep breath, because if you have an expectation, again, going back to that word, that you're going to go into a mediumship session and talk to one specific person and hear this, and this from that one person, I'd probably sit it out for a little bit longer, because I've noticed that there are some people that maybe they've just lost a loved one and they have this deep grief that they're going through, and they really want to connect to that person on the other side. Have I done it for people? Yes. But I think that in my experience, the healthier, perhaps, I don't know if I've used that word, but where it just feels more graceful and more in this place of surrender and flow, is when a person says, I'm okay with whoever it is that needs to show up for me today. And I know that whatever message comes through is the message that's divinely orchestrated. Then I know that they're in a better place to do a mediumship session. Because the last thing I would want someone to do that's in grief is go to a medium, not get what they're expecting, and feel like it was a failure or they didn't connect to the person that they wanted to hear from. So it must not be real. So I would just be mindful of when you go into that kind of experience, because I don't want anyone to be set back in their grief.
And your own personal relationship with death, has it transformed it for yourself?
I have such a strange relationship with death. I think it's because I'm very, very sensitive to energy. So anytime somebody that I know passes away, I feel that very, very deeply. It's almost like, I don't know how many times 10 times 100 what a normal person would feel with someone's transition. But even if I'm hearing a story about someone I didn't know that has passed away, I become very emotional about it. So mediumship has been kind of tricky for me in a way, because as I'm in it and I'm channeling, my physical body will oftentimes create tears, and I'll have just streams of tears coming down my face as I'm channeling, because I can feel the profound love that is between the person and the spirit that I'm communicating with. And it just flows out of me. Um, but I also know that I'm lucky, because I've had experiences with people that have passed away that I did love dearly while they were here on earth and still love them. And I've been able to communicate with them and see them and ask them how they're doing. And I know that that is a huge gift. And so I will keep the all the parts of mediumship, even the ones that are incredibly sensitive, because of all of the different parts of it that I get to experience.
Thank you so much for honoring that. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, the next 5 to 10 years, I mean, you've done quite a few different sort of tune-ins and downloads over the last little while. Where do you see us sort of headed, and ultimately also where we're headed, but also what tools do you really think we should sort of double down on in this period as we go through the next 5 to 10 years?
I think one of the best things each of us can do is to remember how big and how magical we each are and not give our power away, right? Like, I think the less we can be attached to physical things, the better we'll move through this, the better we'll flow. So if you find yourself as someone right now that's really connected to what clothes you wear, what purse you have, what car you drive, what your house looks like, this could be a bit more challenging of a chapter ahead, because I think a lot of what we'll be dismantling are the different systems and things that we have come to rely upon. And so the more that you can be self-reliant, the more that you can just be happy in your own skin with your own life, the better you'll move through this, the better you'll dance through this, because Spirit's showing me right now this this conductor in front of an orchestra. And sometimes a piece of orchestra music will start off like really faint and it'll, be pretty gentle. And then before you know it, you see the conductor up on stage and they're just like, you know, they're going for it like full speed ahead. We are going into that part of the song. But the good news is after we get through that like ferocious part of the piece of music, it starts to come back down and weave that new story that takes us into that next chapter of the song, of the story, of the orchestra as a whole. So there's a lot of different things that'll be changing, because I think it's actually going to touch almost every part of our life that we know it today. I think one of the big factors will be the rise of technology and artificial intelligence. I don't think it's going to be all good. I don't think it's going to be all bad. I think there's going to be advancements with healthcare and curing different diseases and ailments that will really amplify a lot of light here on planet Earth. Um, I also get a lot of downloads about jobs, probably because I've owned different companies and I love talking about business. But they have shown me over and over again that a lot of people that are alive right now that are, maybe they're graduating from high school, maybe they're in college, or they're in their career, that the job and career path they thought they'd have is not what's actually going to be available to them in the future, because artificial intelligence and different technologies will become so prevalent and a big part of our everyday life that it will fundamentally change the way that we work and the different jobs that are available. So as I'm saying that, I'm hearing Spirit say in my ear, it's going to ask people to consider, why am I here? What is my purpose? It's going to get us away from the mindset of, when you go into like an event, a networking event, or maybe a charity event or a gala, and you walk in and somebody comes up to you that you don't know, and they're like, "Oh, hi, what's your name? Oh, well, what do you do for a living? Where do you work?" And that's not going to be part of our future. I do think we're going to be doing telepathy back and forth with each other, and Somebody in the United States can talk to somebody in Australia just through telepathy. And we're already doing it right now, but it's going to become more mainstream in the conversation. But the less you can attach yourself to what your job is, or that your job is your identity, I think you'll move through this a little bit easier. I do think money is going to change. I've called it the death of the dollar for the United States, because the dollar feels energetically very flat, as if it has no value in the future. And I do think that's going to end up parlaying into some kind of digital currency system. And when I was channeling recently, they were showing me that the digital system is connected between all different kinds of countries. And so it doesn't feel like it's going to be the US dollar. There's some kind of like hub or network that connects a variety of currencies together, which I think will be really great. But I do think there's going to be some hesitation from a lot of people on entering that digital system and what that means, because artificial intelligence does feel like it'll be integrated with a digital currency system. And so some people will not want to necessarily have their eye scanned to be able to have access to their money. And so then what does that look like? It feels like people won't necessarily be able to live off the grid so much anymore, because it'll be so integrated in everything that we do. And even with something like real estate, I get the sense that there'll be even more multi-generational families living together in one home, even becoming more popularized that adults are living together in the same home. So it feels like there's going to be a real crunch coming in with real estate, and not so much that we couldn't build a house, but I feel it more on the end of who can afford the home. So it feels like there's even more restrictions coming around that. And it wouldn't surprise me, with everything happening in the world, with different countries in war with each other, that I believe that we're going to be seeing more military on streets that we normally wouldn't see military there. So that becomes more like popularized of it. Let's say you're in the United States, just seeing more of like a National Guard on the streets, or pulling different military in to have different presence in places as war continues to escalate. Because I do think over the next 7 years, that's when we're going to see like night and day difference between where we're at now and what we're moving into. And I think by the time we get to like the early 2030s, we might feel like we have embodied a different suit here on planet Earth, and that we're just vibrating at a very different frequency. One thing that Spirit's reminding me of now, they've shown me this vision of people like standing and looking up to the sky with their hands up, almost questioning like, where am I? Who am I? Where is this? So I do think there's going to be more communication and integration with different galactic beings, and that will become more of our everyday conversation. But with that, I do think it's going to create initially some big polarization and potential revolutionary energy around organized religion and what is true. And it doesn't have to be this or that, it can be this and that. And so just noticing that our story around God and the universe could be shifting a bit. Some people might lean into the revelations we have about galactic beings, but maybe they've been, really interested in organized religion or attending church regularly. Like, how does one believe in organized religion, God, and galactic beings all at once? So I think it can be a lot of different things that are true. But I think initially it could send a lot of people into fear, or some kind of spiral, feeling like, was I lied to, or what is this about? The religion I've been, going to church for every Sunday for my whole life, and now you're telling me there's aliens, like, so there could be this identity crisis that creates a lot of volatility in different societies, and people coming to the realization that it's bigger than just humans on Earth. So it'll be interesting to watch. What a time to be alive.
Yeah, it's really really fascinating, isn't it? The uncertainty and just the like how it's just ramping up at this particular moment in time. But I love what you shared as well, is like, just to sort of step into more acceptance, less, more non-attachment, and just allowing that sort of grace, especially through this period. You've also got, I mean, on that note, like there's a lot coming up ahead for us. 33 signs and stories. Can you tell us a little bit about 33 signs and stories?
Yes, I created a opportunity for me to come together with, people that are interested in these different kinds of topics, psychic abilities and mediumship and what happens when we pass away. And so I created this, class called The Other Side: 33 Signs and Stories, because I'm asked a lot from people, what is a sign that my loved one is sending me? Well, what the heck is that sign supposed to mean? If I talk to my loved one that passed away, can they hear me? Can they hear me right away after they passed away? So it's some of those signs and stories, but also just opening it up to Q&A so people can submit their questions about something they want to know about mediumship or how it works. So I'm offering that. And one of my favorite parts about teaching is that there's people from all over the world that get to connect and share their experiences, and the community I've built around these classes is really quite amazing. And I'm looking forward to bringing this decade of information to this audience. So yeah, the other side, mediumship is quite profound. So I'm excited to bring this out to people.
Awesome. I'll put a link to that in the description and the show notes below. And last little question I had for you, just a small one, was what do you think people get wrong when they start referring to ascension and awakening? Yeah, what are some of the common sort of stereotypes that you sort of see people get mistaken by?
I think that what comes up the most is fear that if someone is going to ascend or their vibration gets higher, what happens to all the other people that are around them that aren't at that same frequency or don't believe in the same things, or they haven't gone through their own awakening yet. So there's this fear of, should I keep my vibration, my knowingness where it's at, because at least I know I would be with my loved ones. And so I would say to anyone thinking that out there, we are all connected. And this lifetime that we're in right now is one thread of a really big quilt. And so, I know it matters to us right now because we're in it. But I'm a firm believer that once we cross back over to the other side and we connect with all of the souls that we've connected with in a variety of lifetimes, we'll understand the much bigger story and the much bigger mission of our soul evolving and learning. And so I would say try to stay out of the fear as much as possible and release all expectations of what the people around you need to do or experience themselves, and just allow for the changes that we're going to go through to happen. We're not going to be able to dodge it, it's coming for us. And allow yourself to just flow as much as humanly possible.
Anything else, Dallisa, that you wanted to share today before I wrap it up?
There's this Rumi quote that I'm hearing in my ear right now.
Please.
Live life as if everything is rigged in your favor.
That's quite the quote.
It's a good one.
My favorite Rumi quote is the cracks are where the light gets in. Yeah, that's
Good one.
one of my favorites too. Really,
Mhm.
really beautiful sage. Oh, on that note, Dallisa, I mean, thank you so much for your time, your energy. Just sharing yourself so abundantly here with us today. Time has absolutely flown in this podcast. I'm not sure if those have tuned in to have felt the same sort of time warp experience that I just experienced. It feels like we were just getting started. And yet you covered so much ground and shared yourself so abundantly and openly as well. I totally want to thank you for your time and energy here today. And also, this is, your life's work. And then also, 5 generations worth of work that we get to sort of, bask in, share in, and revel in today's podcasting conversation. So, yes, thank you for your time and energy, but also just a really deep, deep sense of gratitude for you and who you are and the work you're doing in the world. Thank you so much for you, Sister Bear.
You are a blessing, Amrit. And behind me, we've had photos of my relatives that my lineage come from during this episode today. So I know that they've been here supporting us in our conversation.
Alrighty, Inspired Soul, you've made it through to the end of another Inspired Evolution podcast. Thank you so much for your inspiration to evolve. I'm so inspired by your persistence, your diligence, your dedication to your inner work to evolve. On screen right now is an opportunity for you to continue your inspirations and to keep the evolution flowing. There are a couple of episodes on screen which are 2 personal favorites of mine. As always, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. It helps so much more than we can say. This entire channel is powered by your subscription. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one.